Welcome to episode 245 of Control the Controllables. And hello from down under. The first time I have made it to New Zealand in my almost 45 years of living. And it hasn't disappointed. I'm here at Auckland ATP event, as this year I will also be working with Michael Venus and Nikola Mektic, one of the top men's doubles teams, alongside Gabby Dabrowski and Erin Routliffe. And as I record this, the boys are going strong in Auckland. The girls have prepared incredibly well here, ready for Melbourne. And it's an exciting time of year around here. And of course, the year couldn't start any better than bringing the brilliant panel together and the ever-present Freddie Nielsen, who is in Melbourne right now. You know, you'll hear about that. He's over there with a player that he works with in the qualifying draw. And then we got Calvin Betton. He's also this side of the world. He's in Adelaide as he is continuing coaching Henry Patten and Harri Heliövaara as they start and look to emulate their brilliant 2024. And then we have Candy Reid, who jumps on. She's not with us for the whole episode, but it's always so good to have Candy's insight. You know, she's traveling the world, commentating, speaking to the players. We saw her interviewing Rafael Nadal only a couple of weeks ago at the Next Gen, and Candy has joined the panel as well. So it's a good one. It's always a good discussion. We could talk for hours when we get going. Hope you enjoy the conversation. I hope you agree, disagree, thought-provoke you to our picks for the next 2 weeks in Melbourne. Enjoy it. Get in touch. Let us know. Are we right? Are we mad? Do you have a different opinion? Please do let us know. But for now, relax, enjoy the show. And I'm going to pass you over to our Australian Open preview panelists. So Australian Open 2025 review panel, a big welcome. How you doing, guys?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Hi there, Dan. Hi, Freddie. How are you?
All good. Hi, Candy.
And we will be joined as well by Calvin Betton in the next 20 minutes. We've got Freddie Nielsen, the ever-present Freddie Nielsen, and Candy Reid, two Liverpool fans, which is not a great start to the show. But Freddie, before we get started, a big well done to you. I know you're out in Melbourne right now, and your boys got a first-round win, 7-6 in the third today. So tell us how are things in Melbourne? How are the conditions, how they're playing, and a big up to August, the player that you're working with as well.
Yeah, it was a good match for him. It was his first Grand Slam ever, so a lot of fun to be part of. I would say it's been pretty difficult to gauge the conditions because Saturday and Sunday, the first 2 days we practiced, was like 40 degrees. Monday was 20 degrees and raining, like night and day.
Melbourne?
And yesterday, huh?
That's
Yeah,
Melbourne. Huh?
That's Melbourne. But really difficult to gauge. And today was a little bit faster, a little bit warmer. I will say, I haven't been here for 3 years. I've never seen the blue Australian Open courts be this gritty. They really take some bite and they take some kick and some spin. You still get love when you go through the court. So there will be some obviously some aggressive tennis will be rewarded. The balls, I feel the first 2 games are pellets, and then they fluff up more than I remember them before as well. So all in all, I will say, I don't know how it's been the last 2 years, but this is the slowest, the slowest Australian Open conditions I've seen since they turned blue. I have to say. So obviously, when the weather is warm, the balls fly fast through the air, and some of the courts, as per usual, are faster than the others. I had a hit on Kia Arena that was really fast, and then some of the outer courts are a little grittier. So, as with you, it's pretty usual in Australian Open that the court's a little bit different. But I will say, in general, slower.
Because somebody in Auckland told me yesterday that one of his colleagues, Australian colleagues, who's already there, said that it hasn't been resurfaced this year. So
but I heard it was just resurfaced. I heard it was just resurfaced. I spoke to a guy from the tournament who told me it was being resurfaced like 2 weeks ago or something.
So it's
Maybe
like
3 weeks ago.
it's like a political discussion. Nobody knows what to believe, huh? Everyone's just
Yeah,
coming out
exactly.
with all
But
sorts
they
of
look like they've been resurfaced, to be honest.
right. Okay. That was false information. And Candy, the first storyline we're going to jump into, we will get to the point, and I know you're with us for 20 minutes, half an hour, and we need to get your predictions to see if you've got the finger on the pulse with this year's Australian Open. But the pictures are coming out of Melbourne today. Novak Djokovic, I know we all heard it, that he's got a new coach in Andy Murray, but to see the pictures and to see Andy on the court, he almost looked like he didn't know what to do. A little video footage I saw of him. He was like, and he started hitting the ball against the back fence because he wasn't quite sure. He looked a little bit odd. What do we take of that, and what can we expect from the Djokovic-Murray power couple in Melbourne?
I want to touch on the Andy Murray skiing video before we talk tennis, because I just thought this exchange was absolutely priceless. We know how good a skier Novak is. And then you've got Andy Murray on the slopes, I think, with his kids. And he did a little sort of bunny hop. He looked a little bit my 78-year-old mother, just went skiing for the first time a week and a half ago. And they look very, very similar in stature. So I just want to point that out. Well done, Andy Murray, for at least trying. I'm really intrigued by this relationship. I think we're all waiting to see when things go wrong for Novak, what he does. Will Andy get a little bit of a dose of his own medicine? It's going to take some readjusting, isn't it? Because Murray hasn't done this before. I heard a rumour, and I don't know if anyone can corroborate, but Iga Swiatek actually asked Andy Murray first to coach her, and he said he couldn't spend the 40 weeks as much time. So he's gone to Novak to do a part-time role. Does Novak need a coach? Does he need a bag carrier? Does he need someone just to exchange ideas off? I think that's going to be the role that Andy Murray takes. But I'm fascinated by this. I'd love to know what you two think.
I've actually expressed my opinions quite a bit on the podcast on this. So I very, very quickly then I'll throw it over to Freddie for a fresh take on it. I think it's a genius move, and it's a nothing to lose move. And my reasons being is I don't expect that Novak Djokovic is one of the favourites to win a Grand Slam right now, if I'm honest. So I think because of that, the expectation's a bit lower. I think Novak Djokovic is at the stage of his career where he wants to be loved. Wherever he goes, he played doubles with Nick Kyrgios in Brisbane. You know, he's enjoying that kind of show of getting the love. He's wanted the adulation from the fans for so many years, and I think now eyes are on Murray Djokovic. Wherever Djokovic goes and Murray goes in Melbourne the next 2 weeks, that is the match. That is the court that people are going to want to watch, and I think naturally he gets some love. I think there's an aura that comes with this, a bit like the home team, but you're not only playing Novak Djokovic, but you look in the corner, a bit like I think Murray got from Lendl. I think it provides a little bit of this stronger feeling of having someone in the corner. And lastly, more from a tennis standpoint, Andy Murray was the best player arguably ever, or certainly of the last kind of 15, 20 years on the male side, that had the ability to make his opponent not play well. And if Novak Djokovic is going to beat a Carlos Alcaraz, a Jannik Sinner, arguably a Zverev, and we'll get into that later, I think he's going to have to find ways of them not playing well. And he's going to have to make some slight adjustments. And I think that was what Murray was a master of. And just some little insights in that. Novak for years has beaten everyone playing how Novak plays. And people adjusted to Novak Djokovic. Whereas maybe at this stage of his career, Novak's in a position where he needs to adjust slightly to these players that are currently better than him. And if it does work, then he's a genius and everyone loves it and it's the most amazing story. If it doesn't, I'm not sure that he'll get a whole lot of stick for it and things will just move on. So Freddie's going to now tell me I'm completely incorrect and he's going to have much better opinions than me, as he always does.
No, I was just gonna say thanks for just throwing it over to me, like you said you were gonna. Um, no, I think I agree with you. I think it's a great move, and I think it's a great move because, like you said, Andy Murray will have the knowledge of playing the guys that he's playing against because he played a lot of these players on the tour. Knowing how Andy Murray worked himself, he was the most obsessive guy I've heard about. I haven't seen it in person, but I know from stories that he was so committed into every detail. We saw how he was when he came back from his surgeries and stuff. He is absolutely determined to, by all means necessary, turn every stone, may leave nothing unturned. And if you get a guy like that in as a coach, I'm thinking that's just the way he knows how to work. I don't think he's got to be any different as a coach. So you have a guy who's absolutely obsessive. So if he says yes, I think he's going to bring the same tenacity as a coach. Uh, he's going to be thinking a lot about it, what's going to be better. And like you said, at this stage in Novak's life, I mean, you see the guys that he picked. It's Goran, it's Boris, it's people that he respects, and there's obviously a mutual respect between them and for Andy as well. So in I think it's a fantastic move too, and who knows, maybe it's just like you said, it's a bit too difficult for Andy to come in and impose some thoughts to make other people better. But yeah, I think it's a great move too. I really do. I think it will be beneficial, and I think Andy will cherish being competitive again. I think that's that competitiveness runs in his blood.
And to bring you in, Calv, a big welcome to Calvin Betton. And we're touching on, as you can imagine, the Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray. The pictures have come out today. The one that I want to throw to you, Calv, is like, coaching someone is not just about knowledge, right? It's you can have the knowledge, but how you communicate with your player is everything, and it's a very different form of communication when you are the person being employed to ultimately help somebody. Andy Murray, since the age of 7, has had a whole host of coaches and expertise that are doing everything for him. And now all of a sudden there's a shift that he's the one that has to now get the communication right to ultimately his boss, in Novak Djokovic. Do you think that's going to be a challenge for Andy to get the right communication style, to get that across? Or do you think because they've had that relationship for so long, it's going to be a collaborative way of working that maybe doesn't have that hierarchy?
I mean, yeah, I think you're right that just knowledge I would say, is only around about 30% of what being a coach is. You need the knowledge, there's no doubt about it. But if you can't communicate that to the person that you're coaching, the knowledge is absolutely worthless. But I think it's an interesting dynamic with Andy and Novak because, like you say, Andy's never done this before. Djokovic has had quite a few coaches now. They're friends. So, it's whether he can approach it from a coach to player relationship style while also coaching his friends. That has worked a lot of the time before, and it's also not worked. And it's also whether Andy knows that it's about communication. And that's not a criticism of Andy because there's so many players who don't understand that. And I think it will be a little bit different, but there's obviously some things that Andy does great that Novak doesn't do. Otherwise, if Novak did everything better than Andy, he'd have beaten him every single time they played. But I think with Andy as a coach, and with a lot of coaches who were players and were top players, there's something that I know a lot of coaching theory, they call it a knowledge trapdoor, where it's when you've become so good at something that you forget what it's like to not be able to do that thing, and therefore can't communicate it to the person who you're wanting to communicate it to.
Alan Shearer, Roy Keane.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
Football
I mean, the
managers.
classic one, the ultimate one is Glenn Hoddle. There's a story about Glenn Hoddle when he was for any of our listeners who aren't football fans, who when he was coaching, I think at Swindon, he was trying to coach a player to take a particular free kick, and the player was struggling with it. And Huddle went, "Oh, just give me the ball," put the ball down and swung in a perfect free kick. And then apparently you could just see the player's heart drop out of him, like, right, well, that's embarrassing that my manager can do that and I've got absolutely no way of doing it. But, you know, and I think an example of that knowledge trap that I spoke about, the classic example that's always used is like a concert pianist where they can play symphonies and concertos beautifully. But if you say to them, right, tell me what the first key to press is, what's the second key? They can't actually tell you because they've become it's so unconscious for them that they don't actually know what they're doing when their hands touch the keys, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be interesting. Now, the way I want to do it today, guys, because we've only got Candy for a little bit of time and we need to get her choices. We need to hold her accountable to what she's going to pick. The first one that we're going to go, and then we're going to jump into a couple of different storylines as we go. But the first one we're going to do, which is the first time, who is your pick? And I'm going to come to you first, Candy, of a big name player, male and female, that is going to go out of the tournament early. And why?
Okay, I'm going to go for Sasha Zverev, the world number 2. I think he is going to go out early. He's going to get drawn against Riley Opelka, and he's going to lose in round 2 or round 3.
Wow. Okay. He's potentially
Can you
my
be
pick
more
to win the
specific,
tournament.
please?
He's going to lose 7-5 in the 5th set, Fred.
You'll get odds of about 150 to 1 on that, guys. But anyway. Okay. Freddie, Calv, jump in if you've got someone. Do you have a feeling someone that potentially might go out early?
Kyrgios.
But do we not expect that?
I mean, he's a big name. I can give you
Yeah,
another
he's a
one
big name, but
if you want to see.
I think
I expect it, but I think strangely people in tennis think they seem to just not pay attention to that he actually doesn't win many tennis matches and can't break serve very easily. But yeah, I'd find it difficult to believe he's taking two years out of the game almost and is coming back and going deep in a slam.
What about? Has anyone seen Tommy Paul play this year yet?
He's playing in Auckland, isn't he?
No.
Wasn't he top seed? He's
here.
Oh, then in
He's here in
Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Adelaide. Sorry, yeah, he's
Yes,
in
So
Adelaide.
he's playing. So he's playing in Adelaide. Okay.
Tommy,
Stefanos.
I don't know that. I mean, what I will say is the balls, the conditions are slow here, and I think that's a lot down to the balls. I don't know whether Melbourne will be different, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities to break serve once you get past the first 3-4 games of the new balls. It's tough to get much.
Freddie said that, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I noticed it more this year than I did last year, I would say. Just with when I've been watching a bit over the grounds in our practices and that kind of thing, it's tough to get easy points unless you're hitting perfect serves. There's a lot of hits on returns.
Yeah.
So
my pick on
that basis, kid, I was going to say that I think I could see Tommy Paul doing all right. You know.
Yeah.
He also made semis there 1 year, right?
Yeah, all I was thinking on Tommy Paul is I haven't seen him, and maybe he's the sort of guy that you don't see him for a few weeks, and you don't know what's quite happened. But the one that actually was in my head on the men's side, and to British tennis fans, I apologise, but I have to say what I think. Jack Draper, and I think Jack coming in at 15 in the world, he struggles in those conditions. If we look back to 2024, I think he won his first round match, but he was puking up in the bin. He almost puked up on his opponent when he shook hands. And I just don't quite think Jack's body, and for whatever reason in those conditions, if it does get hot, I don't think he's quite ready for the 5-set matches yet. And Jack Draper is a world-class player who is going to go deep in slams like he did in US Open. but I don't think he's quite ready for a hot Melbourne summer's day in the Australian Open. So I hope I'm wrong on this one, but he's the one that jumps to mind for me on the men's side.
Well, just chipping in there quickly, we know that Jack's had a back problem, haven't we? So he hasn't had a very good lead in. He was meant to hit with João Fonseca at the National Tennis Centre and had to pull out of that before Fonseca won the next gen. So, yeah, I think he's not fully fit and he's had a very, very bad lead in. So that might lend itself to an upset as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in quickly and say I've been thinking about this. I think it's a tough one, but you mentioned Tsitsipas, and I think he didn't look too great in United Cup, so that would be my say.
I was told the other day that apparently the weather isn't going to be great the first week, though.
Okay.
I think somebody said the first 2 days it's quite hot, and then for the rest of that first week, quite cool and quite a lot of rain, apparently.
Sweet.
And what about on the women's side? Is the one I'm going to chuck out there is, which will lead us in, I hope, to a little bit of a discussion here. Let's not hide from the big story of the last few weeks since we've been on this together. Iga Swiatek. And, you know, I think I know what you're saying with the slower conditions. Maybe does suit her. Last year, again, at Australian Open, she kind of hung on for dear life in pretty much every round before being knocked out relatively early, I think, 4th round maybe. You know, but how is she going to handle it? We said it about Jannik Sinner at the US Open, and he went on and won the tournament without hardly dropping a set. But I do think the mental effect on Iga will be greater than we've seen the mental effect on Jannik Sinner. And I saw a quote from her today, which was, if I have to go through this again in my career, then I don't love tennis enough to push through it. And I think I would quit the sport. So Candy, what do we think? Is Iga Swiatek going to be in the right mindset going into 2025? I know she played a good match with Coco Gauff last week, but she did lose to Coco and has lost to her twice now since this has all come out. She never lost to her before that. Does she get drawn against a big hitter in the first 2 or 3 rounds, and maybe we see her going out early in Melbourne?
Yeah, I have a feeling that Iga's going to struggle this year a little bit. I'm not sure that the right choice was Wim Fissette. Not sure he was the right choice for her. I would have gone with Craig Tyser, myself, former coach of Ash Barty, who has said that he'd be willing to take up her spot. So I think Iga's going to lose early. And I'm going to give a couple more predictions, Dan, because I've got to leave. So watch out for Belinda Bencic on the women's side, back from having a baby. Now coached by Ian Hughes, who you all know very well. Once again, second stint together. And the other upset person I think to look out for is Alexander Mueller. He just won Hong Kong, and he's been practicing in the off-season with Jannik Sinner. So watch out for him. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye.
Who is your male winner and your female winner? Who is your women's
Sabalenka.
winner, men's winner of the tournament?
I'm going to go for Sabalenka and Sinner, which is very boring.
Sabalenka Sinner?
Yes. Speak to you too soon. Bye all.
See you later. So what about anybody else on the women's side for us to look out for, guys, of maybe going out early?
Yeah, I actually think that Rybakina could be the one as well, because there's so many variables, and now the story coming out with the coach coming back and getting a coaching accreditation, and I just see too many banana peels as opposed to illnesses. I don't know. I feel like she could be the one.
And to move guys into a more feel good story. I hope I'm sure you guys saw the news of one of our friends, certainly a player that I'm coaching, one of our panelists for many times on the show, Gabby Dabrowski. And for the news, obviously I've been very close to it over the last 8 or 9 months, but she was on Good Morning America. I gave her the option of talking about it on Control the Controllables, that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer back in April of 2024. She has had the 6-month scan say that she's all clear. She's been through, and she still is in the process of various treatments. But that happened. Calvin, I don't know if you knew this, but when we were doing the live show, we had the panelists of Calvin Betton, Gabby Dabrowski, Freddie Nielsen, and John Morris. And within 24 hours before the show, Gabby received the news of the diagnosis, and I was looking back and reflecting on it with a big smile, because I remember you getting in touch with me and saying, look, it's the first tournament I've done with the lads, Henry Patten and Harri Heliövaara, and they win the final of the first ATP event, so you couldn't make it. And I think two stories that have obviously gone on to be real feel-good stories in what you, Henry and Harri, have achieved winning Wimbledon last year, which was absolutely incredible. But absolutely inspirational being close to Gabby and see what she achieved in 2024, and obviously knowing what was going on. Truly an incredible story, and I think the way that she's brought it out as well to help people, and the way that it's been delivered, just a big shout out to Gabby for that as well.
No, I'm just going to say it's a remarkable story, and all the time in the world for Gabby. It's even without that, she's a lovely girl, and this just it just exemplifies everything that she is, I think.
Yeah, the mental fortitude it takes to persevere and be a champion despite all this going on is pretty remarkable, and rightly so that she's on Good Morning America. She should be a role model. It's inspiring. So obviously we're all very happy that it's a thing in the past for now, and hopefully it will stay like that.
Absolutely, and that's all I'm going to touch on with that. It isn't my story to tell. It's absolutely Gabby's story to tell, but it also isn't right for us to have this review without us mentioning and sending our love to Gabby as well. Now, sorry, Gabby, to move from you to a dark horse, because I don't think Gabby is, and Gabby and Erin, we'll talk about the doubles in a minute. They're certainly not dark horses anymore going into Grand Slams with the way that they've the success that they've had. But the dark horses, I always think the dark horses in Australian Open is an exciting one, because it's the slam where people tend to come a little bit from nowhere. I didn't quite get the credit I deserved last year for my incredible shout of Qinwen Zheng as the dark horse, who went on to make the final. Freddie shaking his head. I mean, and hardly anyone had heard of her. I mean, this girl, she'd not achieved very much at all.
I didn't get any platitude for picking Carlos to win French and Wimbledon. I mean,
come on, Qinwen Zheng in January 2024 was not well known outside of China, and here I was picking arguably the star of the WTA Tour in 2024. But it does offer an opportunity for these names. So who we're looking out for, guys? Give us a couple, a couple of names that we can see, various reasons for it as well. Calv, who's on the tip of your tongue?
I haven't watched loads of singles, so it's tough for me to say. I mean, I don't know if he can count as a dark horse now. I also gave him a dark horse at the French. You've got to look at Mpech Perricard, I think. And
a shout out to you on that one, because you called him. You put his name on the map absolutely through on this podcast. I think he was like 160 in the world when you were telling us about him.
Well, I mean, because when I made that prediction, we were at Lyon, and right. I'd watched him. I'd seen him play before that. I first saw him in a challenger probably about 11 months ago in Nottingham. And I saw him absolutely destroying everybody, and not just with his serve, just this absolutely murdering ground strokes. And I thought, this is a serious player, but he's young. And then I saw him at Lyon, and I think I forget who he beat in the first round. And I thought then, this guy's going to be serious at the French. And so we did that podcast, I think, the night of his first round, and I said, I'm going to pick him as the dark horse. Now, as it happens, he ended up going right through and winning Lyon, and had a few long matches. And I think he was just shattered. He got to the French, and I think he lost first round.
No excuses. He lost in first round qualies, I think, Calv. It was a terrible pick. But it's retrospectively, it was a good one.
It can't be qualies. He was in Lyon the week before, and he won it.
Qualies at Wimbledon. He lost in qualies at Wimbledon. But then got in as a lucky loser and made fourth round, I think. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So no, I mean, but I think he beat Kyrgios last week. And I mean, people are saying that he's got the best serve of all time already, which seems a bit much for me. And I maintain, I've had this discussion with people before where, I think for me, the best server of all time, it's not necessarily the best server of all time is Sampras. And other people have said, no, it's Isner. But I don't think you can call yourself the best server of all time. With all due respect to John Isner, he's never served for a Grand Slam. And I think I think
if I can just say something with that point, I think what it is with Pericard is his commitment to the second serves. I think that's what stands out.
Yeah, he's basically
averages 128 miles an hour on second serve.
Yeah, I mean it's people are saying it's 2 first. It's not 2 first, but I'd say it's about 90% of a first. With a little bit extra.
It's about 185% of my first throughout my career.
Seriously.
But again, it's going to be interesting when I talk about the balls, because it's going to be one of those, like, can players like that, can he just serve through the court with the older balls? Yeah, I think he can. However, if he comes across a good returner, does it take a little bit off it? And I think that's always the same with really slow courts. When you see really slow courts, you either get the grinders who win on it, or you get the guys who've got so much power the court doesn't affect them.
Yes.
And I think, when when you're quite a big hitter, they're the players who struggle on the slow courts. And I think that's what I find interesting about Pech Pericard. But I think you've got to have him as a dark horse until he gets seeded, which I think is probably going to, I imagine he'll be seeded at the French. I think he'll be in the top 32 by then.
Is he not seeded already?
No.
Really?
I don't think so. He was the number one player on my list.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to your point with the serving, with the balls, it depends on the day, because if it's one of the hot days, we had 2 training days this weekend, Cal, where it was 40 degrees. It was so fast. But I agree with you. After 2 or 3 games, the balls are big. But the air made it go so fast.
He is going to get seeded. By the way, he is going to get seeded. He's 30.
30. He's 30 in the world.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Dan. Thanks for sharing.
But hold on. I'm a traditionalist, Fred. I only think of 16 seeds. This bloody seeded 30. Come on.
That's a fancy way of saying you're old. That's a fancy way of saying you're old.
What are you? I'm the number 29 seed. Get out of town. 16 seeds.
My wife actually thinks that there should be no seeds in tennis, and it would be much more fun.
Well, it would be fun. It would be fun.
The problem is that it's tough to sell a Grand Slam final ticket for 300 quid when you've got Alcaraz against somebody ranked 128, because all the top 20 have been in the top half of the draw.
Alcaraz against Burton Albion in the final of the French Open.
That's what they always say about the FA Cup. Everyone wants to see knockouts until it gets to the final, and it's Man United against Millwall.
Or wasn't it a few years ago, Man City against Watford? It was just an absolute drumming.
Yeah.
So my dark horses this year are actually going to come from qualies. I think there's some very interesting young players. Number one for me is the Brazilian kid Fonseca.
He's second on my list. Yep.
I think he's going to be top 10 in 2 years. Honestly, that guy.
I agree.
The first time I ever saw him, I was at junior French with a Danish girl, and I just walked past the courts, and I had to stop and do a double take when he was hitting the ball. I'd never seen anything like that. He was absolutely clubbing it. At Davis Cup, I was happy he wasn't in the team because he was there as a hitting partner, but we still lost, so it didn't really matter. But he is I think he's going to be very good. I also rate the young Spanish kid, Landaluce. I think he could be a little bit of a dark horse.
Yep.
And I like the American Lerner Chin, just to go really, really obscure. I think he had a big year. He's young.
Did well at next gen,
I think, yeah. He did well there. I mean, obviously Fonseca won next gen, but he was there and he did well. He won so many matches last year. and I mean, you can that kind of quality you can't stop. And then I like Landaluce. I've seen him in a few tournaments. He works really hard. He's very committed to his game style. So they would be my names this year round.
The one I'd like to bring to you guys, because I've got it right here, is my top two were Pericard and Fonseca.
You had to pick a seed just to maintain your style.
Not a seed. Someone who's in one of those, like, can we call it pre-seeds? We'll call them the pre-seeds rather than the seeds. But I want to ask the direct question: who will be the best player in terms of ranking, titles, all of those things out of Pericard and Fonseca over the next 5, 6, 7 years?
I think they're both going to be top 5 or 6 players in the world.
Yeah.
Are they going to be Tsitsipas type player, or are they going to be Medvedev, or are they going to be Alcaraz Sinner?
I could see them both having similar careers, actually. I think I can see them both winning a few slams.
I'm going to say Fonseca is going to have the better career simply because Pericard is so depending on the serve, and if he gets injured or if he's a little bit off, and I think he'll have to play too many tie breaks. I think there's just too many variables that he'll have to battle through too many matches against too many random guys, where I think Fonseca will win a few easier matches. Obviously, Pericard will have some bigger wins as well, but over a long run, just by the sheer fact that it's tough to maintain that level on serve, I'm going to pick Fonseca.
I think I know what you mean, Freddie, but I think having seen quite a bit of him and having watched him in challenges before he went to the tour and seen him quite a bit of him in the tour, his backhand isn't great, although it's not terrible because he's got what he does have, like from a technical point of view, as we're all coaches, is his backhand. He's got one-handed backhand, which you usually can overpower most players these days, and that's why you don't see many one-handers that you can overpower and players don't have the strength in just their shoulder. But it's not technically the prettiest looking, but he's such a big lad that he can withstand power on his backhand, and he does have a good forehand. Like, I think if we're looking at, I'm not saying he has Juan Martín del Potro or Roger Federer's forehand, but I think if you're comparing it to the serve bots in inverted commas that we've had previously, I think he's got a better forehand than like Isner, Query, Raonic.
I don't think he has a better forehand than Query and Raonic. I don't think so.
And I think he can really whack it. I've seen him play last year. I saw him play Ryan Peniston at Nottingham, and he destroyed Peniston from the baseline. And Ryan's he's no mug from the baseline. And
absolutely not. And he has a good forehand. I agree with you, but I think those guys actually had elite forehands. I have to say, Sam and Milos.
I think they're good forehands. I think he can do more damage on it. I really do. And
I think it's too early for that as well. Query did that over a 10, 12-year period as well. You know, and Raonic made a final of a slam.
What he does do,
a couple of semis.
What he does do is he moves better than any of the other serve bots.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a good mover. He's not saying
that's important.
I'm not saying he's Alex de Minaur again around the court, but he can move. He's quick around the court,
and he's incredibly committed to his game style.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I think what we should say, and this is not me looking to pour cold water on it. If you look in any sport, the exceptionally big guys, they don't have long careers. I'm talking about basketball, tennis. You know, like Isner actually was a bit of a anomaly in that. Yeah, but if you look at
he came through college, right? He started a little bit later.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but you look at like Raonic, he struggled. Like, you know, he was basically wasn't playing regularly at an elite level beyond the age of 27, 28.
I mean, I don't know. I saw Isner age 18 before he went to college. I know Pericard's 19 maybe, but
Pericard is 21, no?
Yeah,
is he 21? Is he
21? Yeah.
So at 18 Isner, and first round qualies in Mobile, Alabama, 15K, maybe 10K. he was drawn against the guy who I was travelling with, a young Mark Hilton, who was about 5'2". in Hilt's, I wish I had a camera phone at the time to take a picture of those two shaking hands. But Hilt's beat him honestly 1-1. And it was like, who is this lanky guy who's like trying to play a bit of tennis? So I think Isner, I know he was a decent basketball player, but I think he was relatively late to the kind of volume of tennis.
Maybe so,
which maybe prolonged. And by the end of his career, he couldn't move very well at all.
Yeah, I mean, he managed. I think he did actually manage it well, didn't he? He wasn't like charging around the court a whole lot. You know, he was kind of just like, you know, we would say if he wasn't that tall, we'd have just said he was tanking. But, you know, he never really chased many balls. Again, I'll say what I will say as well on Pech Pericard. And I said this to I was with Luke in Hong Kong and Sander, his partner, when the draw came out and he was going to play Kyrgios. And I said to them, like, one thing I'm certain of with Gio is that he will not be fazed by Kyrgios's games and that kind of thing. He just doesn't care. You know, he doesn't seem fazed at whether the crowd are for him or against it or the pressure of matches or whatever. He might not win every match, but he doesn't lose it because his head's gone or because he gets tight or anything like that. And that's how it played out. Kyrgios started, you know, he started doing his shot through his legs and that kind of thing. And then I think Kyrgios gave up on it in the end, thought this guy's like a Terminator. It doesn't work with him.
Where does, which is my final one on the list, Mensik,
good player,
who's also a 19-year-old. You know, his stats are already on his return games are already very much in line with Zverev. He's already top 50 in the world, 49 in the world now. Where does Mensik fit into that little Fonseca Pericard conversation?
I think he's in the mix. Yeah, I think we'll see him in the top 10 for sure.
I agree with that. I just think that I have no good argument for it. It just feels like he lacks a little bit of X factor.
Yeah,
unbelievably good player. It's based on nothing.
Yeah, but he's Czech. He's Czech. That's what they did. Like that's how they kind of do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, kinda. Yeah, the girls have a lot of X factor, I think.
Well, I don't know. I think they all. I mean, Krejcikova. I mean,
Siniakova does a lot of good. Vondrousova has some X factor.
Yeah, Vondrousova is different for sure, but yeah, I think.
Okay, then she doesn't count. Sorry.
but in personality,
they don't have X factor apart from the ones that do.
Yeah, exactly.
But hold on, but there's two bits, right? There's game style and way of kind of expressing hitting tennis shots, and there's personality. I think even Vondrousova, and there's a great story on Vondrousova at Wimbledon final last year when she played against Ons, or 2 years ago, Ons Jabeur, and day of the final you get offered to hit on centre court. So Ons turns up on centre court and she's wearing all black because that's what she normally would warm up on, and she wasn't allowed on centre court. So there's this big stress, there's this big thing going around getting her white clothes, and she gets changed, goes and does a hit, and Vondrousova was hitting on the same court, Southfields across the road from Arangi, you know, far side, completely non-fuss, turn up to the Wimbledon final, Ons is tight, nervous, Vondrousova just kind of goes through that's what I mean by the Czech, that mentality. It's just dum, dum, dum. Well, I know she has a little bit more maybe skill to her game. Anyway, I'm trying to get myself out of the hole that I've already dug, but we'll move smoothly into the women's side and pick our dark horses on that side now. The names I've written down, I've looked at them and I'm like, God, I always say those names, apart from one.
I can finally go back to one of my old favorites,
which is
Clara Tauson.
Oh yeah, well, that unbelievable, because I'm in Auckland and she walked off the court, and in Auckland it's like a club, right? So you all of a sudden you're in the kind of club lounge, which is the players' lounge. And I was kind of watching on TV, and I was like, "Oh, she's about to lose the first set." And then she was all of a sudden stood next to me, and
Yeah.
looked like 100% she'd lost the match,
Yeah.
like 100%, like
No, I
completely.
got
And
the notification. I thought the same. I was like, oh, I hope it's nothing bad for Melbourne.
yeah, but just the way that she was in her demeanor. And then I looked up, and on the screen it said champion, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what's happened there?" She seems another one that just takes things in a stride a little bit, huh?
And she has a great upside. She's been trying to find her game a little bit the last few years, which is also why I haven't been mentioning her much on the pod. But she had a great preseason. We saw her a lot in Denmark this year. She's playing great. She was playing really good level. She had a match. I think a Danish newspaper wrote this, that she had the match with the fifth highest ace tally in the history of women's tennis. Like she had a match with 26 aces. So she's playing great, and she did a lot of hard work. She worked really hard. She's in a good place. Personally, she's done well here in the past. I think she's one to look out for.
Great. And Calv, anyone, are you kind of furiously looking at the rankings there, or what's going on?
I am, and I've got to say, no one's standing out to me outside the seeds.
Well, I'm going to jump. I'll jump in.
You won't let me have Osaka again, will you? I've tried that one before.
Do you know what? She's actually on my list.
Is she? You said I couldn't have her at the French. I took her at the French. You can't be taking Grand Slam champions.
It's like my dad used to do. Do as I say, not as I do. And as the host, it's very much that kind of deal around here.
I mean, I'll say that Anisimova isn't in the top, isn't in seeds, and she's always got a few wins in her, but she's also always got.
You can't steal my girl. Right? You can't, you know what I mean?
She's just unreliable, She's absolutely unreliable. I don't see her going deep, if I'm honest.
But Anisimova she's absolutely on my list because she can shock anybody in the world. She can beat Iga.
She can, yeah, she can.
She can have a day, and if she has a day, then she could find herself in the fourth round. She could find herself in the quarters. I'm not sure she's got it in her to go further than that, but she's certainly got the level. Oh,
yeah, no doubt.
The other one I want to mention from qualies actually. There's always an Aussie that does well, and anyone that follows tennis closely will know that Birrell had a couple of good victories. She beat world number 8 Emma Navarro in Brisbane. Then actually she backed that up by beating Potapova as well. I saw she won a first round qualies. I was thinking, why is she not got a? I know she's 99 in the world because of Brisbane, so her ranking wouldn't have got her in the main draw at the time of acceptance. But surely the Aussies don't have that many people to give wild cards to that Kimberly Birrell wouldn't have got a wild card.
There's been a lot. I've been surprised with the wild cards. Actually, I've seen a lot of players in qualies and and not in qualies who I thought would have got wild cards in the men's and the women's. It surprised me.
Do you think they've changed the way they're doing it, the criteria, or?
Maybe.
Kimberly Birrell's 26. She's not that old. She can't have had that many wild cards before.
Yeah. Maybe so. I'm just, but then I know, in this week, the Rinky Hijikata, I think Rinky's only 23, maybe, and he was, he's having to qualify. He's won Australian Open in doubles.
Didn't he get in on ranking?
No, he lost in qualies, then got in as lucky loser.
Oh, you mean last week? I thought you meant in Melbourne.
No, in Melbourne, no. I'm talking about this. I was surprised that the wild cards. I'm surprised the wild cards the last 2 weeks in Brisbane, Adelaide, and in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And just the last one I have to mention. It's more of a name to remember really than anything else. And Emerson Jones, and I don't know if you've seen this girl play. She's born in 2008. She's 16 years old. She looks about 12. Genuinely.
August, my player, actually played her brother today, so they have strong tennis genes.
Right, yes, they do. Well, she in Adelaide beat the world number 37 yesterday in the main draw. In Xingyu Wang, who's a good player, and she plays against Daria Kazatkina tomorrow. But that's certainly a name to look out for. Now, in the juniors, anyone that knows her in the juniors, she's world number 1. So it's not like she doesn't have a pedigree. She's had a lot of success in the juniors, but she's really quite impressive, and at such a young age to be already having wins over players in the top 40 in the world. You can play her right. There's no doubt about that.
It's funny you say that. I'm just looking there because I know Henry and Harri telling me we went on court practice today. There was a girl on the court next to them, and they were talking about it. I said, "What are you talking about?" Because that girl there, she came onto our practice court the first day we got here and said, "I need to use this court. I just got here and I've got a match tomorrow." And
really?
She ended up winning 4 in love. And I'm just checking who it is. And that's her name, Emerson Jones. And she is quite small. Yeah, she's tiny.
So she's got a bit about her that she's kicking off the Wimbledon champs, huh?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, she had no idea who she was kicking off.
Yeah.
No, but it's like, actually, Fred, it's just made me remember a kicking off story. When we were in Rome, and you were playing with Grigor. So Freddie's in Rome playing with Grigor Dimitrov at the time when he was going out with Maria Sharapova. And it was his most hanging around with him that week. And he just signed a Hugo Boss deal, and it was all it was this whole kind of world. It was a long way away from concert in the northeast of England.
It was the week after he beat Djokovic for the first time as well in Madrid. So it was all kicking off.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so we're practicing Josh Ward-Hibbert. We brought Josh Ward-Hibbert out because Freddie never just wanted to do the kind of boring doubles drills. It was like, let's train. I want to train while I'm here. So him and Josh were training a couple of hours every day. And we booked one of the practice courts at Rome, but it's the one next to the match courts. And we're about to start hitting, but Serena Williams is on our court. And it's like, we're a little bit like, and then Fognini walks off his doubles. He was on one of those back courts. And Freddie, being Freddie, obviously knows everyone. Everyone loves Freddie. So Fognini's like, and Freddie's like, how was that? And he goes, that was shit. I'm playing like shit. And I've got to play Rafa tomorrow on the centre court. I'm just going to get embarrassed. He said, are you boys about to hit? And we were like, yeah. He goes, can I jump in and hit some with you? He goes, what time's the court? And we said 5. And it was like 5:02. And he literally, in the middle of a basket drill, Patrick Mouratoglou is about to feed a ball to Serena, and Fognini just walks in the middle of the court. He's like, get off, guys, we've got this court. And there's me, Freddie, and Josh Ward-Hibbert are like in tow, like following Fognini onto the court, which was a classic. But that's what I mean. Like, these players that have that belief, maybe this Emerson Jones is a bit of a Fabio Fognini. Anyway, I don't know if I've made the right link there, but it reminded me of a funny story. Before we move and make our picks for the singles, I guess we're doubles is in our veins, right? All of us. I've got a list here of new partnerships.
Okay, I have one thing for you. Not too long because I have an edge today. But did you see Mark Petchey's tweet?
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
Yeah, I strongly disagree.
Tell us about the tweet. Tell us about the tweet first.
Sorry, he made a tweet saying he just made a random rankings. I'm going to list these disciplines in order of entertainment: mixed doubles, women's doubles, invitational doubles, men's doubles.
I saw it. And Rajiv Ram jumped, didn't he?
Yeah, I know there was some chat about it in the group about what's going on here, but I thought that was a poor take from him. I don't know what's.
I think, having read the the conversations after. I'd read that he had quite a long conversation online with Rajiv, and I actually messaged Petch myself and said, I think we agreed that we would have a chat while here in Australia. I kind of got the feeling, and I don't think it was particularly helpful, I kind of got the feeling that he was looking to engage that kind of conversation. But I don't think that was necessarily the way to do it.
I agree. I felt like it was a bit provocative.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was, to be honest. Because then, when Petch was challenged to, well, what would you do different? He basically offered, I'd like the net posts to go on the sidelines so we can have more shots around the net. And
server has to start behind the service line.
Server stands behind the service line, which I'm very much opposed to. I don't think you can be changing the rules of the game. I don't think it makes the game any less interesting that servers can stand close. If you look at I said this, and Petch actually agreed with me on this, and I maintain this on sport, that people watch sport because they have a connection to the people who they're watching. And I think the problem with doubles continues to be with the ATP. They won't allow the doubles players to develop stories, and they won't encourage those stories to be told. And I think there are stories to be told. I think there's a natural story in doubles. It's people and relationships, and as Kierno's going to talk about in a minute, there's new pairs, there's loads of new pairs. Now imagine if more people knew. Imagine if there was some cameras around at the end of last year where there were 10 pairings splitting up and new partnerships forming. If that was the Netflix show. There's personalities. There's so many personalities in doubles. That's where
we've been talking about that for a long time. If there is a fly on the wall documentary about doubles, it's a money making machine.
And listen, I got into this with Petch, and he entirely agreed with me that doubles, they can get this. They'll never get this on singles now, because the singles guys, there's too much management. They're all too media trained. And he was saying when you interview, when they talk to singles players, it's all kind of, they have to know the questions in advance. They can't be surprised with any of the questions. They just give bog standard answers. And I think that's the same in all sports now. And I think it's a problem, but singles guys, they get enough TV and they get enough media coverage that they kind of have stories. But doubles guys, you can't say that, the stuff about, the rallies are too short because the service partner can stand close to the net. The second most popular sport in the world is cricket. Nothing happens for about 98% of the time. The bowler comes down, he bowls, the batter hits it, and nothing happens for 2 minutes. And then the same thing happens again. Football, the most popular score in football is 1-0. It's like, you play for 90 minutes and there's one goal most of the time.
And the ball's in play for about 52 minutes of the 90 as well.
52 minutes, yeah. It's not...
I think you can make a great comparison to football, because it's also... What bothers me about this trajectory of sport in general is they're removing quality and substituting it with entertainment, artificially made entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you have doubles, you appreciate the high quality of the execution and all that. Just like if you watch the Premier League, that's how the Premier League, for example, has gone. It's high intensity, it's high quality. Do you see a regular number 10 like you had in Maradona's day? No, the game is too quick. Do we stop watching? No, because it's high quality. That's how the game has gone. If you go to Sunday League or League 2 or something, you might see a guy who can take on a few guys, dribble it around. It's a little slower, but that's not the progress of the game. So this is the highest quality of the game that we have. Same as in the Premier League. It's so fast. I don't know if you've watched a game. Obviously, you have live, and it's so quick. I don't understand how they can make the decisions they can, the football players. And it's mind-boggling the level of quality they can have at a high pace. And it bothers me to the umpteenth degree that we're trying to take quality away and substitute it with artificially created entertainment.
I think as well, like there's this idea that, and this is complete, I'm beginning to think more and more this is a complete myth. No one wants to watch doubles. I'll tell you a true story now, just from today. Me and Henry were having lunch I'm looking at the stadium right now at my hotel room. We're having lunch. And we'd gone in there early. We finished lunch. I said to Henry, you fancy going out and watching some? And there was Skander Mansouri, Tunisian lad, playing with Ivan Dodig, Croatian, and they were playing against two Australian wildcards, but Luke Saville and Lee Two, I think. And they were on one of the outside courts. I said, you fancy going and watching? He goes, yeah, let's go and watch. We went out there. We couldn't find a space to watch. And it was only an outside court, admittedly. We couldn't watch. Henry could watch. He's 6'6". I couldn't see the court. You know, and it was that's what it was like. You know, from
Calvin, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. We've been in every tournament between us probably in the last couple of years, and it's rare that the court's not pretty much packed for doubles that I've seen.
I'll tell you the only places, Kiernan, where the courts are always empty for doubles, it's where there's no one watching singles either. And it's like last year, there was no one watching the doubles final in Marrakesh. Henry and Harri won in Marrakesh. No one watched the doubles. You know what? No one watched the singles either. I went in centre court numerous times. No one was there watching. It was in the middle of Ramadan. There's no one ever watching the tennis in Miami. You know why? Because it's in the middle of nowhere, and no one watches singles on the outdoor courts either. The only people that come in to watch tennis in Miami are the people who've got tickets for centre court. And you watch, however, Beijing, I was out. Every single doubles match packed. Every single practice we did, and you'd have had it as well, Kiernan, because you were in Beijing.
Yeah,
the lads are on court for half an hour after signing things. Hong Kong last week, we were on the outdoor courts we played 2 matches on the outdoor courts where there's a small grandstand. I'd say the grandstand was 85% full for both of those matches. We played on centre court for the second round and the final. And I'd say the centre court was 80% full for both of those matches. And that's 2 lads ranked 55 in the world they played the final against Khachanov and Rublev. In the second round, they played Lucas Miedler and Santiago Gonzalez. Bucharest last year, Henry and Harri in the final, stadium was full. Wimbledon final, stadium was full. Where are these people who are not watching doubles? That's what I want to know.
Indian Wells, every court packed.
Yeah.
Every court packed. Rome outside, apart from the centre court.
Exactly.
Rome's actually busier on the outside.
You know what? And this is what doesn't help. And I hope I'm not going too deep into this and not boring any of the listeners. But the semi-final. Okay, so in Hong Kong last week, they've gone down to 1 outside court and a centre court. So they start in the centre court, I think, at 11 a.m. or 11:30 maybe. And the tour manager calls up the supervisor. I can't remember the supervisor, tour manager, whoever does the schedule. He calls up Luke. We're practicing. He calls up Luke and Sander. He called up Sander on his phone, and he goes, "Yeah, you're on tomorrow, 2 p.m. outdoor court 1." And Sander goes, "Well, aren't you doing two matches on centre starting at 11, and then 2 more starting at 6:30?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, then if you do that, then there's going to be no one watching on the outdoor courts because you're only getting this is later in the week. Everyone's in centre." He goes, "But if you put the match on at 4 o'clock, the 2 singles are finished. Everyone's going to come from centre to watch the doubles. They'll watch the doubles and they can go back and watch the two singles on centre." And he goes, "Yeah, that's a good point. We'll do it at 4 o'clock then." And this doesn't help. This not paying any attention.
Or maybe even just put the match on centre.
Put the match on centre. I think the only thing they were worried about there, though, Freddie, was that they wanted the night
delaying
match,
the night session.
Yeah, start the night match on bang on time, which I kind of get. But I thought, just put a little bit of thought into how can we get more people? How can we get some people watching that? And he did it. In fairness to the supervisor, because I'm saying 9 out of 10 of them wouldn't have done that. Have gone, "No, we don't care. It's still on at 2." He went, "Yeah, good point. We'll put it on at 4." You know what? The grandstand was full.
Yeah.
We could continue on stories on it for sure, and we need people to know the truth on it, and just to finish off on Petch, I did read it, and I often think Petch brings these conversations up for the right reason. In fairness to him,
I liked that it got engagement. I think it wasn't helpful in the current climate of what we're talking about.
Yeah, so we got a bunch of new pairs, guys. That there's lots of different pairs on the women's side. Actually, only 3 of the pairs that were in the WTA finals have stuck together. We got Su Wei and Ostapenko, which is going to be absolute fireworks one way or the other. Mertens, Perez, Melikov, Babos, Chan, Kitchenok, Sigmund, Haddad Maya, Scherz, Mohammed, Kudermetova, Shibahara, Stern, Stefani, Buskova, Matic, Sands, Lynette, Olmos, and then on the men's side, Ram, Krajcek. It's like it's an Olympic year. We've then got the Brits coming together in Skupski, Salisbury, great pair, this. Mektic, Venus, they look good. Ebden and Vliegen, finally, the Belgians have split. After all of these years of being together. Zielinski is also split with Nice, which has been a long one, with Gilles, Nice, Roger Vasselin, Donic, Mansouri, but we've then also got the Austrians. Erle Miedler have played with each other for a long time, have split as well. Miedler with Santi Gonzalez and Erle playing with Mies. I'm sure there's more, but it's like it's wife swap gone wild, no?
It's just a new year. That's just the way it is every year. And you said it best when you said they'd played together for a long time. In what measurement? I mean, if you had said this 20 years ago, you would have been laughed at. But that's just the way it is. People think the grass is greener on the other side, and they think it's about splitting, and then they'll find new fortune.
Calv, I know that you've got your boys. I've got my boys, so we won't get involved in them too much. But who do you look at there and think smart dealings have been done, and that could be a force to be reckoned with? Which pair jump out at you on the men's side?
I don't know. I think you've got to see them first. I think you've got to see, chemistries and that kind of stuff. And they're all good players, all those guys. It's going to be interesting to see. And I know them all quite a bit, and I know a lot of them listen to this. So I don't want to go I think that's a bad one or that's a good one. But I think,
But we don't want to do bad ones for sure.
Yeah, no,
we're not going to.
I think all of them, I could see all of them, because all of those guys you mentioned are good players. I think it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, I think. And I still think, if I'm, bullet to my head, I think the pairs that are already together are still some very good pairs. There's be interesting because there's, the Italians, Bolelli, Vavasori, have got a lot of points to defend the first half of the year. They had a hell of a start to the year. They made final in Oz, final in the French, I think final in one of the 500s. They've got a lot of.
They won Halle.
They won Halle, yeah. They got a lot of pressure on, I think, to repeat what they've been doing, and they kind of have to do it in the outdoor on the slower courts, because I think they do struggle a little bit on the quicker courts, which is strange because they both do have big serves. And then Ebden and Bopano, they won it together last year, but they're obviously both in new partnerships. They won, so they got 2,000 points from this, and they've got 1,000 points each from winning Miami as well, and then semis of the French. So it's going to be interesting. I still think you're looking at the pairs to beat. I still think you're looking at Aravalo, Pavic, Granollers, Zebios. There's
Kravitz.
Yeah, Kravitz, Poitou. They had an interesting year, Puts and Kravitz, last year, because they dropped quite a bit. And I remember watching them, and all the time watching them thinking, these guys are not playing bad. These guys are playing some good tennis.
They have so much upside. I played with Tim for a while. I mean, there's no limit top.
Yeah, very good. Both very good players. And I remember watching every time I watched them start the year, and I thought, geez, these guys are playing some good tennis. And they and as Freddie knows as much as anybody, and I know that the double scoring system can bite you in the backside quite a bit. You can be the better team for 85% of the match and find yourself, how have we lost that? And I think they got involved in a lot of those. And, when we talk about pair splitting and that kind of thing, it wasn't happening for them at the start of the year, despite playing well, but kept going. And then final of the US World Tour Finals, so, but they're
anyone
good pair,
jump out for you, Freddie?
I think Pitch Kravitz are going to be a very good team. They're sticking together.
Of the new pairs.
Oh, the new pairs? No, not really. To be honest, there's nothing. I mean, I think Venus Mektic is going to be a very good team. I'm not just saying that for you. Obviously, Salisbury, Skopsky have a connection, so those will be the two that stand out for me. Maybe Ebden, Fliegen, but
that's the one. That's the one that stands out for me, actually. I think.
The other ones, I need to see first. Like Cal, I'm not too convinced by.
Great, and
but should we pick our singles winners?
I think so. I think we need to get it on the line. I'm not sure I've thought about it. I'm maybe feeling a bit nervous. Should we just go Sabalenka Sinner? Or are we going to be a little bit braver? Or what are we doing here, guys? I think,
Sabalenka Zverev. I think he's gonna win a slam this year, Zverev, and I think Aussie Open is a good chance for him.
Calv.
I think Sinner wins. Actually, no, I'm going to change my mind. I think Medvedev will win. I'm going because of the balls.
But he always complains when it's too slow, though.
Yeah, he made the final last year, though, didn't he? Complains and was 2 sets to love up in the final here last year.
Yeah.
I think he's
True.
tough to beat if with those. He complains whatever the balls are played with.
How many matches did Jannik Sinner lose on a hard court in 2024?
Was it none?
3.
Or 1? I thought
3.
he only lost 3 all year. Was it 5 he lost all year?
He lost 3 on a hard court and he won 53.
Right. Okay.
He's the massive favourite. I think he's a big favourite.
Yeah. No, I think you'd have to say he's favourite. I just, I think he's not going to keep winning. That's the thing. He's going to lose one of these.
Yeah. And I'm with you, Fred, that I think Zverev, I think finally the time has come that Zverev is in the right headspace to win a Grand Slam. I think we talked about it last year. He couldn't crack an egg on his forehand. He's absolutely made a difference in the last 6 months of the year. He started to do more with that mid-court forehand. He serves holding up. He's serving beautifully, actually, especially, the first serve, the percentages. I think it's going to be a Zverev-Sinner final. And let's see if they're not on the same side. On the women's side, Coco Gauff for me. I think, again, I think Coco Gauff and Sabalenka are the current top 2 players in the world. A quick one on Coco Gauff. During the WTA finals, the average number of winners people hit against Coco Gauff in the WTA finals was 16. The average number of unforced errors was 46. And I think tennis is a movement sport. You have to hit. It's a hitting sport and a movement sport, and I think the hitter goes against the mover. But I think in women's tennis right now, I think there's a space there. Iga's shown it as well that the best movers could be the ones that have the most sustainable success. And I think Coco Gauff has found some confidence, and I think it's not quite catching the eye of Sabalenka smacking winners, but I think she's digging her claws into women's tennis right now, and I think we're starting to see a player that could absolutely go on and be a multiple Grand Slam champion because she moves so well and because she now has the confidence. So I'm going to go Sinner, even though I think Zverev is a good call, and I'm going to go Coco Gauff.
Good shout.
Guys, as ever, a big thank you. Good. Freddie, we're all behind you, and August, all the best in qualifying. Me and Calvin hope to see you this weekend.
Yeah, same. May your teams play in the final.
Exactly.
Nice.
That would be nice. We whatever happens, if that does happen, we go for a beer together after. That's
live stream the coaching against each other.
Yeah. Well, we had a bit of box to box. Last quick story. Earlier on in the year, at Wimbledon, court 1. And it was the time that England were playing the semi-final of the Euros against Holland, and I'm in one box for the mixed doubles, and Calv's in the other box. But we were court 1. One of the boxes, you have a scoreboard, and so the scoreboard hides, so you can actually have your phone watching the football without anybody knowing. Calvin was in the box that you couldn't hide, and all I could see was Calvin looking at his phone for 90 minutes during the match, and I knew exactly what he was doing, watching England beat Holland. Boys, all the best, and good
all
luck.
All the best, guys. And hope to see you here.
Look forward to seeing you in Melbourne, and good luck this week in Adelaide as well, Calv. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. So there we have it. We've got some people sitting on the fence. Sinner Sabalenka. I think that's what we're all probably expecting if we're playing it safe, right? They're definitely, for the first time in a while, maybe strong favourites, I think, going in to this event. But as ever, tennis is played on a tennis court. It's not played on paper, as much as everyone loves telling us exactly who different people are going to play on the way. I always love it. in brackets hate it, when it comes across and it says the quarterfinal draw is this. And it's like, come on, let's respect all of these incredible tennis players. But what I have done since we recorded this, the draw is now out. The singles draw is now out. And I picked a couple of matches to look out for. Andrei Rublev won't be happy with his draw. He plays João Fonseca, who I've been talking about for a few months now on the podcast. And João came through qualifying relatively easy. I believe it's something like 13 matches in a row from the next gen to winning last week in Canberra to now qualifying for the Australian Open. And that is not an easy match for Andrei Rublev. Jacob Fernley, one of our most recent guests, he's got the plum tie in Australia. Big court, lots of attention after playing Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon in 2024. He now plays Nick Kyrgios in the first round. Now, we know Nick Kyrgios has had a few injury issues. Is he going to make it to the court? Best of 5 sets. You know, you've got to fancy Jacob to have a good chance in that match. You know, can Nick Kyrgios's body hold up for the best of 5 sets? I'm not so sure. So that's a one to look out for. And then the other one, I'm here in Auckland, and there's a young man, Basa Varedi, American Indian boy, and boy, this kid can play. He's 19 years old. He's in the semi-finals today here in Auckland. And Novak Djokovic has him in the first round. You know, that's not an easy match for the Djokovic-Murray pair. But he does have Andy Murray in his corner. Is Basa Varedi ready, pardon the pun, to take on two of our sport absolute greats? So those are a couple of matches that I picked out from the men's side. Women's side, actually, I started thinking I was looking at the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam a few years ago as I saw Belinda Bencic playing against Elena Ostapenko in the first round. You know, that's a match we're used to seeing towards the end of the tournament. And then the same as last year, Caroline Garcia and Naomi Osaka have been pulled out of the draw next to each other. That doesn't happen very often, that 12 months later you get to play the same player in the first round. Last year, obviously, Osaka was on her way back and Garcia had a little bit too much for her. I think we'll maybe see the role reversal of that here this year, again, if Osaka's body hangs up. We then got a couple of All-American ties. We've got Coco Gauff against the Grand Slam, former Grand Slam winner in Sophia Kenning. I think she'll have too much for her, but I think there is some interest in that. And then we've also got, which I think this is a little bit of a banana peel. Anyway, you know what I mean. Emma Navarro against Peyton Stearns in the first round. And I expect Peyton Stearns to have a bit of a breakthrough year. I know she's maybe got herself to 40, 50 in the world, but I can see her towards the end of this year certainly being seeded. Is that seeded top 16 or is that pre-seed 17 to 32 by the end of the year? So that's the one to look out for. And then there's just a couple of players that kind of go under the radar. I know we've mentioned them quite a bit over the last couple of years. And obviously Freddie, it's his fellow countrywoman in Towson, Clara Towson. She plays against Noskova, who's now, we had her as a dark horse for quite a while, but she's very established. These two girls, they're not the high profile, but they both can play, and they're both players that can go far into the draw. That's a tough first round match. And just the last one I want to mention is Emerson Jones, the young Aussie, the number one, 16 years old, number one in the world junior, plays against Rybakina. So a couple of players that we talked about through the episode, they come up against each other in the first round. It's going to be exciting. I'm hearing it's going to be hot first couple of days, and then it's going to cool down a little bit. So the first couple of days, let's see what that throws up. But it's an exciting time. It's a pleasure to be out there. I am going to be looking to host some live streams throughout the fortnight. I won't be doing them every day like I did in Riyadh, looking after 2 doubles teams and the travel associated in Melbourne. I'll probably have a little bit less time than I had in Riyadh, but I certainly hope to be with you 3, maybe 4 times a week. So look out for that. Come and join us on YouTube. Get your questions in. What do you want to know about Australian Open 2025? Who do you want to hear from? And short, sharp, hopefully give you some nice insight. So look out for that. Lots more coming your way. But until next time, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllables.